Today's Amud is really Daf Yud Chesem on base. We're already holding about halfway or close to halfway down the Amud on Daf Yud Chesem on base. So we'll finish Yud Chesem on base and we'll see. When we get to Yud Chesem on we'll see what time it is and we'll decide whether to move forward or just leave it over there. Okay. So Daf Yud Chesem on base, it's a new piece already. Amr Rabbi Elazar Amr Rabbi Yishia. There's a dot. It's like halfway down the page. Amr Rabbi Elazar Amr Rabbi Yishia. And Amr Rabbi Elazar said in the name of Rabbi Yishia, Bikurim Hanoch Makkos ben Kriya Ein Makkos ben. So we already had a little bit of discussion about this. Mishnah and Rabbi Zayin Amud Aleph said that someone who eats Bikurim, meaning a kohen who eats Bikurim before Kriya. So according to the Tana of the Mishnah, so he gets Makkos. He's not allowed to eat. Even the Klein is allowed to eat Bikurim. He's not allowed to eat before the Kriya. And the Gemara says they should know that's Zudiv Rabbi Kiva, or like the Gemara says later Zudiv Rabbi Shimon. There's a Bryce of Rabbi Shimon who says clearly that Bikurim can only be eaten by the Klein after Kriya. But the MS, the Chachamim argue, and they say Hanocha Makkos ben Kriya Ein Makkos ben. Hanoch is Makkos, not the Kriya. But MS, it's a two-way machlokes. In other words, it's a kul and a chumra in each one. The one who says Kriya Makkos will say that Hanocha Ein Makkos, even though Hanocha is generally before the Kriya. But let's say Hanocha means before the Mizbech. V'inachte l'fnei Mizbech Hashem l'kach. The passage goes like this in Parshas Kisav. V'ateinei veisis reishis pi adam asher nesata li Hashem. V'inachte l'fnei Hashem l'kach. So the inachte means before the Mizbech. So before the Kriya. But so the time of the Mishnah says it needs to be Kriya. Generally speaking, that's more common with it because the Hanocha comes first and then the Kriya. But L'maisa, he would agree, he would say, sorry, if you did Kriya and without Hanocha, the Kohen would also be not get Makkos for eating. Okay. So that's the machlokes already. We have to know machlokes to know whether Hanocha Makkos or Kriya Makkos. In other words, when does it really become Bikurim? Does it really become Bikurim after Hanocha and Kriya is just like an extra thing you have to do? Or no, until you do Kriya, until you've read the psukim, right? So then it's not really considered bikurim, and the kohen's not allowed to eat it, and he gets Makkos for eating. So now we have the Amor who says, Amr Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yishia bikurim hanocha Makkos ben kriya ein Makkos, which is like the shit of the Chachamim, not like our town of the Mishnah. So now the Gemara asks the kasha. So this is Amor, but Pashas Amor is passing out the Rabbanon. The truth is that the halacha also is like the Chachamim. See if you look in Rambam, halacha is like the Chachamim, not like our Mishnah. Hanocha Makkos kriya ein Makkos. The best of my knowledge, yeah. So, did Rabbi Elazar really say this? Could Rabbi Elazar really said this? The same Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yishia, the same Rabbi Elazar said in the name of Rabbi Yishia the following din. Hifrish bikurim kaidem l'chag. Someone was mapish bikurim before l'chag means sukkos. One's the time of being mapish bikurim, so really it's from Shavuos time and onwards. Mishnah Bikurim says that from Shavuos till Sukkos is maybe v'koireh, and after Sukkos is maybe v'einu koireh. So the ideal time of bringing Bikurim is between Shavuos and Sukkot, and then you bring the Bikurim and you koyer. But what happens if Hifrish Bikurim koydem l'chag va'ova le'en achag? You mapish Bikurim before Sukkot, and then Sukkot came along. So then Rabbi Elazar and Rashi says that the din is Yirkuvu. You have to let the Bikurim rot, and you can't eat it. Cannot eat it. Why not? My lab. So what the Gemara at this point thinks like this: that because you were mapish Bikurim koydem l'chag, so there was a chi of kriya, there was a chi of to read before Sukkot. Between Shavuos and Sukkot, you mapish Bikurim before Sukkot. Before Sukkot, there's a chi of kriya on the Bikurim, and now it's aval le'en achag. So now you're not able to do kriya. So therefore, the Bikurim is ruined because you need to do kriya, and now you can't do kriya. So that's the Gemara thing. So this stage, my lam mishum deloy matzah lemikra le'en. Since there's a chi of kriya because you were mafish it before Sukkot, and now you're not able to mishum deloy matzah lemikra le'en. Now you're not able to do kriya. So therefore, that's why you're kabul. That's why. Can't do anything with the Bikurim. You just have to let them rot. The Kohen can't eat it, and still got Kedushas Bikurim, so you just have to let it rot. If this is the same Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yishia who says that Kriya is not Ma'akav, am I Yirkavu? Why do you need to let it rot? Just it's fine. Just let the Kohen eat it without Kriya. That's what you just told me a second ago. The Kriya ain't Makkos ben, that the Kohen could eat it without Kriya, and Kriya isn't li kuva, doesn't ruin the Bikurim from being Bikurim. If that's the case, why are you saying Yirkuva? So right, so that's the Gemara's kash. The Gemara understands that Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yishia, when he says Kriya ain't Makkos ben, means if you're not Koyer, it's okay. And over here he's saying if you're not Koyer, in other words, if you mafsha before Sukkah, so there was a chi of Kriya, and then you weren't Koyer because now it's after Sukkah, so you can't be Koyer anymore. So then Yirkuva, it's ruined. You have to let it rot. So that it's not Bikurim. It's a stira. So that's the Gemara's kasha. The Gemara answers no stira. Why not? Because Rabbi Zera, like Rabbi Zera, we see this is the famous principle which is said in the case of mixing called color royal bila. Case of bila. What's bila? Bila is mixing the menachas. It has to be able to be mixed. So it says Rabbi Zera over there. Rabbi Zera color royal bila ain bila makaves bila kolsha ain royal bila bila makaves. Let's just translate and stop over. We'll do Rashi. Rabbi Zera says like this: there's a din that the soilus has to be. There has to be the menacha, the mincha has to be mixed together, right? It's called bilo, yeah. So the Chachamim say that the amount that you can mix, if it's too much flour, so then you can't mix it. So the shiur is shishim isaron, and therefore the Mishnah says that if it's shishim ve'echad isaron, you have to separate it. Shishim in one keli and echad in another. The Gemara straight away asks, why do you say that? There's a din if you didn't mix it, it's kosher. So the Gemara answers that there has to be royal labila. It has to, at the very least, have the capability. So it's applying the same din over here. Since you were mafish before sukkah, so there's a chi of kriya. So even if you weren't koire, it would be okay. But now that it's after sukkah, and you're not able to be koire, so then that's ma'ak. Let's see inside Rashi. Hifrish bikurim, right? Different mask will bikurim. It's towards the top of the page. Bikurim if neachag b'nei kriya. Bikurim before sukkah or b'nei kriya, meaning mechuyev in kriya can be koire. After Sukkot, it's too late. Can't read it anymore. What's the marker for this? The Ksibas Kriya. It says after the whole Kriya in the Parish Kisava over there, it says you should rejoice with all the good. So the Gemara learns out. So Mishnah. She was man simchas the kid's page from. She wasn't till Sukkot. That's the time when you have a simcha because it's the time of collecting the payras. So then maybe the Kriya. I mean, Chag and Chanik, which is already after the man the kid's payras. So there isn't simcha anymore. So then maybe when the Kriya you to bring bikurim, it's not too late to bring bikurim, but ain't a koyer. So now the Rabbi Lazar and Roshi said the following day: Hifrish lifnei chag, you mafresh before the chag. Just in others, what Rashi over here is explaining is that what happens if you attack a mafresh to bikurim after sukkah? So everyone would agree it's okay. I can't be koyer. It doesn't matter because there's no chi of kriya. The whole shaila with the kriya makavis is when there is a chi of kriya and you weren't koyer, is a ma'akum or not. So here we have a member of Rabbi Lazar and Roshi, which implies that if you weren't koyer, it's a problem. Yirkavu, if Sukkot comes by and you weren't koyer and you were mafresh before Sukkot, so there was a chi of kriya and you weren't koyer, it's a problem. And earlier he said the kriya is not Makkos, so it's a stira, right? So that says Rashi, if you were mafresh before Sukkot, there was chal that became in effect the chi of kriya. The ov alein and then Sukkot pasha ain't roin Yirkavu. The din is that you let it rot. So it's a stira. And the Gemara, no, kidder b'zeir. You answer it like Rabbi What's kidder b'zeir? Lo oilam b'kruin, lo oilam likriya lo ma'ak. If it was before Sukkot and you were able to do Kriya and you didn't for whatever reason, and the Klein ate it, they wouldn't get Malchus, and it's good Bikurim. You yoitz the mitzvah Bikurim, and the Klein can eat it without getting Malchus. So Kriya is not Ma'akav, but Elu Sha'avas man, but in this case where Sukkot has passed. Now it's not even possible to do Kriya Ma'akav Kriya Kid Rabbi Zera, like we find this principle, the din of Rabbi Zera, which is by Bilo, by mixing the flour of the Menachas, Masachas Menachas, Mishnah in Menachas that we give on the base. Yeah, someone says, I'm a kabbalah upon myself a mincha of 61 isaron. Isaron is a volume. So maybe shishim b'ktiyach, you bring 60 isaron in one keli and one in the other keli. You have to separate it. The maximum that you can have in one keli is 60 isaron. Why? So the explanation is the ad shishim yichoil and livala b'ktiyach. Up until 60 isaron you can mix it in one keli. More than 60, 61, the Rabbanan assessed the situation and they came to the conclusion that Einon, Nivlal, and Yafi can't be mixed well, but period. So therefore you have to separate it, one 60 and one in the other. So the Gemara straight away asks over them, so why if you can't mix it? Why do you have to separate it? Make 61. And what's the problem? Anon now, we learned in a different mission named Loi Bala Kasha. If you didn't mix, it's Kasha. So the answer, basically, there has to be shy of the ending of Bila. If you didn't, it's okay. Okay, that is how we are miyasha. The stira. So it comes out now that we're tweaking it a little bit. Even though we had a machlokes earlier where the kriya is ma'akav or not, even according to the mandama, the more lenient one, which says the kriya is not ma'akav, you have to tie choice. What does it mean kriya is not ma'akav? It means if you actually weren't koyer, it's not ma'akav. But if you're not able to do kriya anymore because sukkah's passed, and you were mafresh before sukkah, there was a chi of kriya. Now you can't do kriya at all. So then taka, that is ma'akav, and it's a problem, and the bikurim cannot be eaten by the kohen. Okay. So now we have a different version of the same Gemara. What's a different version? In other words, instead of Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Oishi being the one who says the Kriya Ein Makavas, according to this Kirsa, it's Rabbi Asi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. And the problem is going to be that Rabbi Yochanan somewhere else says something which contradicts himself. But the different version is instead of Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Oishi saying Bikurim Anocha Makavas Ben Kriya Ein Makavas Ben, it's not. It's Rabbi Yochanan. Yeah. So Rabbi Acha Bar Yaakov Masin Law, Rabbi Asi Rabbi Yochanan. Acha Bar Yaakov learned this saying not in the name of Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Oishi, but rather in the name of Rabbi Asi and Rabbi Yochanan. But the same din. Bikurim Hanocha Makavas Ben Kriya Ein Makavas. Kriya is not Makavas. The kasha Rabbi Yochanan. His kasha was the following kasha: Stira Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan is the one who says the Kriya Ein Makavas. We have a stira, a kasha, a contradiction between Rabbi Yochanan in one place and Rabbi Yochanan in another. What's the stira? Miyam Rabbi Yochanan Bikurim Hanocha Makavas Ben Kriya Ein Makavas. But can we really say that Rabbi Yochanan says that Bikurim Hanocha is Makav and Kriya is not Makav? That as long as you put it in front of the mizbeach, you're fine. And if you, however, if you didn't read the Baal, the Bailam didn't read the necessary psukim, so then it's not a problem. Ein Makavas, but that's what Rabbi Yochanan is saying. According to Acha Bar Yaakov, how can you say such thing about boy? We have a story that Rabbi Asi asked this following kash from Yochanan, following Shaila. Bikurim Ein Mosai Mutarin Lekleinim. There's a question halacha l'maisa, so it wasn't just a right. They asked Rabbi Asi asked Rabbi Yochanan, Bikurim Ein Mosai Mutarin. When are the Lekleinim allowed to eat the Bikurim? And he said to him as follows: so if it's a type of bikurim which is ru'in likriya, like it's before sukkahs, or there's no other reason, right? Regular bikurim, so then mishakar aleh. The Klein can eat it, but only once kriya has happened. So even before we go weiter in the brayso, in the statement of Rabbi Yochanan's answer to us, we already have a steer. Earlier on he said bikurim kriya is not ma'akav, and now he's saying ru'in likriya mishakar, and the Klein can only eat it mishakar. But let's continue. The she'ain ru'in likriya, because there's a steer in the seif of Rabbi Yochanan's words as well. The she'ain ru'in likriya, however, if it's not ru'in likriya, if it's bikurim which is ein ru'in likriya, the mashal between sukkahs and Chanukah. There's other cases, by the way, which is ein ru'in likriya, according to certain shittas. A ger can't say the kriya because he can't say aviseinu. The ma'aser we pass in otherwise, and that's taka the seif for the halacha that even a ger can say lekenu v'kavseinu kavram in davening. But either way, there's different cases which are not royal kriya. Besides between sukkahs and Chanukah, the she'ain royal kriya. What's he say? Misharo pnei habayis, from when the bikurim sees the face, when it comes into contact with the pnei habayis, the door of the base, with the opening of the base. So here too we have a kasha, because earlier on we said hanacha is ma'akav, and here we're saying hanacha is not ma'akav. We're saying you just misharo pnei habayis is enough. It doesn't have to be put in front of the mizbech, as long as it's already, it's just in front of the base. It's okay. So that's the Gemara's kasha. The Gemara asks a twofold kasha kriya. You have a kasha kriya. Rabbi Yochanan's original statement, the way Rabbi Yaakov understood it, was that the kriya is not ma'akav. And here, when Rabbi Asi asked Shaila halacha l'mayis, Rabbi Yochannan said that kriya is ma'akav. The Klein can't eat it until kriya, it's royal kriya. And then we have another kasha, because when it's ein royal kriya, earlier on it seems to say that hanacha is ma'akav, and here he's saying hanacha is not ma'akav. Kasha hanacha. So the Gemara answers like this: kriya like kasha. The first kasha, whether kriya is ma'akav or not, like kasha. Harib Shimon Haraban. I mean, instead of Yochanan himself, he paskined that kriya is ma'akav, I guess, yeah, right? Because that's what he answered to Rav Asi. Rav Asi asked him the shaila. He answered mishakar aleh, and the Klein can only eat mishakar aleh. Early on he said kriya is ein ma'akav. It's there. He's just explaining the shit of the Rabban. Yeah, loy kasha. So that's what we say. Kriya loy kasha. Harib Shimon Haraban. And earlier on in Dav Yud Zayin Amud Aleph, straight after learning the Mishnah, we learned although the Mishnah says that kriya is ma'akav and the Kohanim will eat the Kohen before kriya, then malchus, that's only the shita of Rabbi Akiva or Reb Shimon. The Chacham argued. So that's what the Gemara says over here. Lo kasha harib Shimon harabana. When Rabbi Yochanan said the kriya is ma'akav, in other words, when he answered Rav Asi by saying that the haruin the kriya mishakar alein, that's going according to the opinion of Reb Shimon, and he's takapasing Reb Shimon. Harabana. But when earlier he said the kriya is not ma'akav, he's going like the opinion of the Rabban. Why does he say Reb Shimon, not Rabbi Akiva? So different answers. Given one is that Reb Shimon is explicitly in the brayso. Right, Rabbi Akiva is just Rabbi Yochanan saying Zudivri Rabbi Akiva saw earlier, but Shimon is clearly in the brayso says the kriya is ma'ak. Either way, lo kasha Rabbi Shimon haraban. Hanocha nami lo kasha. We have a different steer that when it's ein royal kriya, in one place Rabbi Yochanan says the hanocha is ma'akav, and in another place he says that Shiur pnei habayis, the Klein could already eat it if there's no kriya necessary. So the Gemara answers lo kasha harib Yehuda v'haraban. It's machlokes to Noam, one side Rabbi Yehuda and one side the Rabban. So earlier on, he was saying statement according to the Rabbanan, both statements, and over here later when Rav Asi asked him Shaila, he was passing in halacha l'maisa, and he was saying like when they get to kriya go like Rav Shimon, and when they get to I'm going to get to Hanacha, whether Hanacha is ma'akav or not. So I go to Rabbi Yehuda. My Rabbi Yehuda, what's Rabbi Yehuda? The Tanya is following. Before we start this brayz, we just have to lay down the side, which is the side that whenever something is said twice in the past, it seems unnecessary, at least by Kodshim and Yonim, which are shaykh to the Beis Hamikdash, Shona Kosav la'akav. So we have two psukim, so then it's ma'akav. But if you only have one pasuk, it's not ma'akav. So the discussion around whether Hanacha is going to be ma'akav or not is going to be dependent whether you have two psukim to say you have to do Hanacha l'fnei HaMizbeach, you have to put down the Bikurim. If there's two psukim, so then it's coming to say that besides there being a din that you have to be maniach l'fnei HaMizbeach, there's also another din, a second time, to tell you that it's ma'akav, but the Kohanim are not allowed to eat the Bikurim before. It's leikuba, it ruins the whole Bikurim if you don't do it. It's not just a mitzvah to do. So this is pshat. So when we say loy kash ha'riv the Rabbanan was said Hanacha is ma'akav. Rabbi Yehuda says Hanacha is not ma'akav. Why did Rabbi Yehuda say that Hanacha is not ma'akav? It's not explicit. He doesn't say it clearly, but from the fact that he says that the second v'nachta, one of the v'nachtas, isn't referring to Hanacha. We're referring to Hanacha, then it would be the principle that would be two v'nachtas. Two psukim saying you need to do Hanacha, so it will be la'akav. But since Rabbi Yehuda in the following brayso learns the v'nachta, one of the v'nachtas of these is not referring to Hanacha, it's referring to something else, to Nufa. So therefore, we know that Rabbi Yehuda holds Hanacha is not ma'akav. The Tanya we learn in the following the brayso as follows. So Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Yehuda says v'nachta zu tnufa. Says in the pasuk, if you look in Torah Shalom Hey, the pasuk says v'ata ini yavesis reish be'adam Hashem nasati Hashem v'nachta l'fnei Hashem lekach. He places it before Hashem. Pashas, that means he put it in front of the Mizbeach. But he says no, v'nachta zu tnufa. V'nachta doesn't mean placing it, which is the pashtus solution of the pasuk, but rather means zu tnufa means waving. Rashi, I think, explains, we'll see inside soon, that how does v'nachta become tnufa? It says minoshan mancha, like nocham elokim. Hanacha could be placing, but also it can be mancha. Mancha is someone who leads something. In other words, you're moving something to the different directions. So that's v'nachta according to him. It means tnufa, right? So the Bryce straight away asks, he explains himself, so to speak. Ata imazu tnufa, telling you it's tnufa, yeni ala hanacha mamish. Maybe kipshut, it means hanacha. So he says no, it can't mean hanacha. Why not? Maybe there's another passage which says. That's Hanacha l'fnei HaMizbeach. But it says v'nachta l'fnei Hashem lekach, must be talking about tnufa. That's what he's already talking about hanacha. We can't be v'nachta zu tnufa. So since Rabbi Yehuda says that one of the v'nachta is the nicha, right? He's talking about hanacha, but the second one v'nachta is referring to tnufa, so he doesn't have a second pasuk la'akav. So it must be that he also hanacha is not ma'akav because it only says once, and that's the marker. As long as Shiur pnei abayis, it's okay. How exactly we know that he needs l'fnei abayis? The Mepharshim explain. I can't remember off the top of my head where he gets that from. But either way, you don't need hanacha. Stays the same. Okay. So v'nachta zu tnufa, yeah. Okay. Man tani the polygon Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, that's Rabbi Yehuda. Who's the Tan who explicitly argues on Rabbi Yehuda and says hanacha is ma'akav? We know that's the Rabbanan band who says hanacha is ma'akav. But I guess the point is, who's the Tan who says it clearly and learns it out of psukim? If Belez ben Yaakov is Belez ben Yaakov. Tani we learned in the brayso, another brayso. So look at the Tani miyodach. Says in the part the Klein takes the basket from your hand. Question is what's up with miyodach? Yeah. So limit al bikurim shetunim tenufa. Divrei Belez ben Yaakov. Belez ben Yaakov says that from the lashon miyodcha we learned tenufa. Point now is, before we go further, since he learned miyodcha is referring to tenufa, so see how, so therefore he's now the v'hinachti can't mean tenufa. It must mean v'hinachti, it must mean the second time the Torah telling you to do hanacha. If there's a second time the Torah telling you to do hanacha, so it must be la'akev. Must be to tell you that it's ma'akav, the kohanim are not allowed to eat, and the loika, it's not considered good bikurim until the hanacha has taken place. So that's how it works out. Now the Gemara just explains what's pshat Belez ben Yaakov. How does the word miyodcha become tnufa? The Torah of Lokah Kohen Tani miyodcha means that the kohen takes the basket from the hands of the yid. What's happens to tnufa? My time the Belez ben Yaakov. Also yad nishlam. It's a shava the word yad from shlam. What's pshat? Ksivach of Lokah Kohen Tani miyodcha. Over here it says that the kohen takes the basket miyodcha from your hands, meaning from the yid's hand. Or it says by shlam miyodach tviyanas ishi Hashem. So we learn from here as follows: that we learn tnufa one from the other. We don't just learn tnufa; we learn Gzeir Shava that although the pasuk by one says it's a kohen, right? By Bikurim, it says let's see lashon pasuk v'locha kohen edanim yodacha v'inicha lifnei mizbach Hashem elikacha. So v'locha kohen edanim yodacha, the kohen's taking it and doing whatever miyodacha means. Miyodacha means tnufa, so the kohen's doing tnufa. So makan kohen, just like by Bikurim it's kohen, after alon kohen. So also by the shlam, although it doesn't say it's the kohen, we know it's the kohen doing tnufa. The edach mal alon bailim. Just like over there, meaning by the shlamim, it says Yadav Tfiyan is talking about the Bailim bringing the shlamim, and we know that the word Yadav refers to Tnufa because of the Hemshcha pasuk over there. Yeah, the pasuk says Yadav Tfiyan Esishe Hashem. You have it over here, yeah. Torah Zayin. We know he's talking about Snuffle before. So we learn the fact that Snuffle we learn to be Korim, and now the Protei at Snuffle we learn one from the other. Since the Korim is talking about Korim, we know the Shlam is also talking about Korim. And since the Shlam is talking about the Bailim, we know that the Korim is also talking about the Bailim. Now, how can you have two people doing Snuffle at the same time? So the Gemara is going to address that, yeah? But we know that both, Yad Yam, the Shlam Tzibach, of Lokar Korim, Ksiv Yad Tzviyah. Now, Ma Kan Korim, just like the Korim is the Korim doing half Alon. Mal Alon Bailim, just like by Shlam, the Pasuk is referring to the Bailim, the Israelim doing Afghan Bailim. Haketza Maniach Kohen Yod Takti De Bailim or Meinim. How does it work? The Kohen puts his hands underneath the hands of the Bailim or Meinim. So there's actually different opinions of the Rishonim whether it literally means that the Kohen puts his hands underneath the hands of the Bailim or not. If the Kohen literally puts his hands underneath the hands of the Bailim, it's a little bit of a problem that the Kohen's hands aren't actually touching the basket of the Bikurim, so it could be a Chatzitza. Right, so therefore, some Rishonim learn that it's an exception. It's an exceptional case whereby the Be'emes, the special pasuk tells me that it's not considered chatzitza. Others say that it doesn't mean literally that the Kohen puts his hands under the hands of the Baalim, but rather it means that the Baalim put their hands on the side of the basket and the Kohen put their hands underneath the basket. So to speak, it's underneath the Baalim's hands, but not literally underneath it. They're both touching the basket. Okay, let's see Rashi. Let's pause over here. Let's do Rashi. Masni law. The hard Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Oishi Rabbi Asi Rabbi. Some say it's not Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Oishi saying this in the Hanacha is Ma'akav and Kriya is not Ma'akav. Rather, it's Rabbi Asi Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Asi Amish made Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, now we ask a kasha. What's the kasha? How can Rabbi Yochanan say that? How can Rabbi Yochanan say that Kriya is not Ma'akav? Somewhere else he says. Rabbi Asi asked him Shaila when Kohen allowed to eat it. He says that if it's royal in the Kriya, it's Mishekara, which means Kriya is Ma'akav. Right? Royal in the Kriya says Rashi Me'atzeres Vadachag Shiur Pnei Abayis. It is through Kriya, and if it's not royal in Kriya, then he says Shiur Pnei Abayis. Mishikansela Azar. Hanach lo Ma'akav Estam. Hanach is not Ma'akav at all. Only Kriya is Ma'akav, and Hanach is not Ma'akav at all. So he said it's a stira. Kriya, Hanach. It's a stira. Right, Kriya, because earlier he said the Kriya is Ma'akav, and earlier he said Kriya is not Ma'akav, and here he's saying you need to do Kriya. And later he said when it's not royal Kriya, earlier on he said Hanach is Ma'akav at the very least, and here he's saying Hanach is not Ma'akav, Shiur Pnei Abayis. Let's see Rashi. Shiur Pnei Abayis, right? Harab Yehuda, so the answer the stira between Kriya and Kriya is Harab Shem and Rabbanan. Stira between Hanach is Harab Yehuda, Harab Yehuda, the Yehuda Lei Ma'akav. According to Yehuda, the Hanach is not Ma'akav. Why? The Dorish Vinachti say the only reason why Hanach would be Ma'akav is if you have two times the Torah telling you to do Vinachti. Shana Kasa L'Akav, the Torah repeats it to be Ma'akav. But if Yehuda, Hanach is not Ma'akav. Why not? The Dorish Vinachti, you say it's Tnufa. He learns that the extra Vinachti is talking about Tnufa. The Ein Mikra Shani B'Hanach L'Akav. It comes out there's no repetition of the pasuk to be Ma'akav. To tell you that it's Mamish Ma'akav. It ruins the Bikurim if you don't have Hanach. The Rabbanon to Loi Dorish Le'Laki. However, the Rabbanon who don't know Vinachti being referring to Tnufa, Miboyulu. The Shana is V'Anocha L'Akav. The repetition of Anocha is to tell you that it's Ma'akav. V'Nachti Zut Tnufa, right? According to Rabbi Yehuda, Kari Bei. How does V'Nachti become Tnufa? Right? V'Nachti means to place. So he says Kari Bei V'Hin. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Hanachosai maybe. V'Chasai. To lead. That's pshat. Yeah. To lead. Sorry, L'Akav. You look at guys. It's Yonim V'Hin Chisu. Leading, yeah. Then lead them. He kind of directs it or guides it, leads it to the four directions of Malomai. Man Tanin the polygon. Who's the Tanin who says clearly otherwise? In other words, the Anocha is Ma'akav, Takad, but who's the Tanin who says clearly and explains why? The name Anocha Ma'akav Belazman Yaakov. It's a Belazman Yaakov. The Nafka late Tnufa Mikrachina. He learns Tnufa from a different pasuk. What's the other pasuk where he learns Tnufa? From the word Yodav. It says Lacha Kohen Tanim Yodacha. Word from the Gzer Shava Yad Yad. Shlamim it says Yad Tviyan, and then it continues to say Tnufa. So we learn here that but Lacha Kohen Tanim Yodacha. Kohen takes it from your hands means that he's doing Tnufa with it, and therefore he has V'Nachti for Hanacha, which is Ma'akav. Just like over there, by the Shlamim, it's talking about the Bailim doing it. The Chesiv says in the Farish in the pasuk, Yovi is Karbani Lasham Yizav Shlama. He should bring his carbon. the Baal bringing his carbon, the Samichle, and later it says Yada Tzviyana, and then it says, which is referring to the Tanufa. So therefore we know it's the Baalim. So also we know the same things by Bikurim. So the Ma'aser both by Bikurim and Shlam, and we know that the Tanufa is done both by the Klein and the Baalim. And Pshat the Gemara explains is that both the Klein and Yid do it together. There's different shittas, and showing them exactly how. Either one's literally underneath the other, in which case it seems to be a problem of Chatzitz, and we have to say it's an exception to the rule. And it's not considered Chatzitz, or other Rishonim in the Pashas, it doesn't literally mean one underneath the other. They hold different parts of the basket. The Baalim hold the side of the basket, and the Klein is underneath, and doesn't literally mean underneath the hands of the Baalim. It means lower than the hands of the Baalim. Okay. Amar Rava Barada Amar Yitzchak. Rava Barada says in the name of Yitzchak. And here, this is the Chora repetition. In other words, the same thing as we said earlier. Ikurime Mosai Mechayvin Alein. Was the Bach and Rashi learn Mosai Chayavin Alein. Yeah, when you chayav. Different shatim exactly what this means, by the way. Rashi says Mosai Chayavin Alein Misa Zora Oichla. When there's a zar, when is the chayav misa? Yeah. Another way to learn is, I think, that if you eat it outside of if the kohen would to eat it outside of the chayma, you would be chayav on it. Anyway, when is the chal bikurim on it? That the different dinim apply that it's mamish considered bikurim, and as Rashi explains that the zar who eats it is going to be chayav misa. So we say Shiur pnei abayis. It's a similar thing as what we said earlier. Earlier we were just talking about the kohen and when they're allowed to eat it. Now we're saying by conscious, when's the zar get misa? We say Shiur pnei abayis. So command, who's it going right? So the Gemara says, if you have bikurim, which part of the bikurim is outside of the, we're showing them learn differently, but we're going to learn just one way, which is miksas b'chutz, meaning outside of the azara. Or miksas mishnim, partially inside of the azara, shebechutz haring b'chulin l'chol divrei, and that which is outside of the azar is haring b'chulin l'chol divrei, meaning azar is not going to be chayav misa. Shebifnim haring kagdish l'chol divrei, the part which is already being Shiur pnei abayis inside the azara is kagdish l'chol divrei. Says Rashi, meimosei chayavin alei, and we saw. Okay, that's the end of the really that's discussed on the base. We're at the top of your testament out. What's the time? 9 o'clock. You there? It's really this one. It's really one long piece. Should we stop over here and then we're on schedule to do an almond? Otherwise, you can kind of try and finish the almond. But it's really it's all one piece really. It's the truth. Huh?